Hello, everyone. Good morning. So, I think without wasting the time, I'm going to start the class because I'm recording this class right now. So, the last topic that we have discussed in our subject, that is management of industrial relations, we have discussed the trade union, their functions, their objectives, and other topics also we have discussed under trade union. The same extension is today also. We're going to have discussed today the Trade Union Act 1926. So this is one of the basic act of trade union that we all have going to study today about some concept of trade union. That is why it's formed and what is its motive behind. So we start with this particular definition and objective of the act. So that is on your screen. Not much here we have to not much here we have to understand in detail. Just we have to understand that why has made and what is its implication is in today's scenario, right? The Trade Union Act was passed in 1926 under the title of the Indian Trade Union Act and was brought into effect from 1st June 1927 by a notification in the official gazette by the central government. The Act was amended in 1947, 1960, and 1962. Subsequently, the word Indian was deleted from the amended Act of 1964, which came into force from 1st April 1965. The Comprehensive Trade Union Amendment Act was passed in 1982. So this is one of the history of when it is formed and subsequently how many amendments are taken place under this act and when this Indian word is removed or deleted from that particular act. And finally, it was passed in 1982. So this is about all the history of Trade Union Act. Now, why this particular act has formed? That is objective of the act. The Act enacted with the object of providing for the registration of trade unions and verification of the membership of trade unions so registered so that they might acquire a legal and corporate status. As soon as trade union is registered, it is treated as an artificial person in the eyes of the law of capable of enjoying rights. So here, basically, this act has formed just to make these unions more legal and make them uh, more strengthened on the basis of some different corporate look and representation. And the major thing is what when this particular trade unions got registered, then a particular authority has known about it, that how many have union members are under that particular trade union, what kind of activities these trade unions are doing, what is their status, right? So a lot of things are able to understandable and known by the certain legal authorities about this trade union. So that is the basic objective behind that act. Then next one, this definition of Trade Union Act. Under Section 2H of the Trade Union Act 1926 defines the term trade union as any combination, whether temporary or permanent, formed primarily for the purpose of regulating the relation between workmen and employers, between workmen and workmen, or between employers and employers, or for imposing restrictive conditions on the conduct of any trade or business, and includes any federation of two or more trade unions. So as per this definition that is on your screen, this definition we already have has discussed in our last classes when we have discussed about what is the meaning of trade union. So under the Act of 1926, the trade union has defined in a kind of a definition that is on your screen right now. It's a kind of combination uh, of people where they consist of certain workman and employers relations, or it is workman and workman only, or even a kind of relationship between employers and employers also, or for imposing restrictive conditions on the conduct of any trade or business. For example, if any kind of uh, conditions are there that are not uh, up to the particular uh, labor's condition and everything, then it can be restricted also under this kind of act, and includes any federation of two or more trade unions. So, or if two or more unions have combined together to get into any motive, then that is also have watchful under this particular act, right? Then uh, functions functions of and role of trade unions. That is also a kind of revision that we already have discussed this particular function, but we're going to have discussed today, right? Again, to improve working and living conditions, that is the major thing of trade union function and role. They have to see, they have to work out over whether the workers, employees, laborers, they have particular working and living condition or not. So they have to see that, they have to improve it if it is not up to the mark. And first is what? To improve working and living condition. Then to secure for workers fair wages. That is the major thing that we already have discussed in our last class. They have to see whether these workers are getting the right kind of wages and salaries or not, because most of the employers across the industry are trying to uh, save on their own side, and they are not giving up to the mark wages and salaries to the employees and the workers. Then these trade unions are watching over it, this kind of conditions, and then they have negotiate with the management to 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 regularly pay their employees wages and salaries, and that is to secure and fair one, right? Then to enlarge opportunities for promotion and training. Another important fact that these trade unions are looking out is what? They have seen that what kind of opportunities are available in an organization for the promotion and training of an employees and workers and laborers. As I already told you earlier also, this kind of conditions is very helpful for the workers and laborers to improve their career, right? If that point is not going to watchful, then what happen? Many organizations have what they have did in the lower side of that particular or hierarchy, where the workers and laborers supervisors are normally mm, resides. uh, they have trying to uh, can say remove or these kinds of workers and laborers, those have not that kind of level to do the new jobs, and then they recruit the another workers and laborers also. So what happened? These workers and laborers, those have not much known to their rights. They are not able to do much for the against it. This kind of decisions. Labor union, what they are trying to do, they are trying to enlarge the opportunities when they have seen that for a particular organizational work, some more skills required, then they force the management and the other authorities to develop their own employees first, to develop their own workers to face the new challenges, and they help them to promote and give them a better training for the future assignments, right? Normally what happen in the industry to avoid the cost of training, normally in the lower level of the organization, these kinds of workers and laborers are not normally continued in the particular job. If they have not that kind of ability and skills, then they these kinds of employees have removed from a particular responsibilities, right? Then to promote individual and collective welfare. So, and that is also the important thing, that collectively they are seeing that whether the individual and group of employees and workers are getting benefits from the organization or not. They are working for their welfare, like they are giving the free education to their children. They are trying to give them a better hygienic condition to live out in a particular area, right? Then to provide for educational, cultural, and recreational facilities. That is, just now I told you that many organizations, trade unions are working over the better conditions to provide their children what's a better education, better cultural environment, and recreational facilities they're trying to provide to the workers and keepers. Then to safeguard security of tenure and improve conditions of service. Uh, that is also the important part because these workers and laborers are normally in target of this management from management side. Whenever certain awkward conditions are there in the economy, normally they let down this kinds of level of workers and employees to just to save the uh, so to save certain on their own side, right? So to safeguard, to give them more security in their tenure and their job, these trade unions are normally working over it, and it's improved their conditions on services also. And the last one is to promote the identity of interest of the workers with their industries. And the most important is what they can promote the identity of interest of the workers. So workers' interest is always promoted by these kinds of trade unions, whatever the industry with they are working for, right? So these are functions and roles of trade unions. Now this is major trade unions organizations that are currently working in India. Other than this also, many labor unions are there, but majorly they are around this five trade unions are there that were working on national level. That is INTUC, Indian National Trade Union Congress. That ATUC, like All India Trade Union Congress. Then CTUC is Center of Indian Trade Unions. NLO, National Labor Organization, and then TUC is Trade Union Congress Committee. So these are the main national level trade unions in India, right? Now, there's certain more things we're going to have discussed over it. Provisions for this Trade Union Act, definition. First, we're going to have discussed over the formation and registration. First, we're going to have discussed definition. Already have discussed. Now, formation and registration of the trade union. So this is all certain kind of activities and procedures that the organization should have to take care if they are going to have registered for trade union, right? So under section 4 and 9, that deals with the procedures of registration of trade union, right? So what are the procedures? First one is mode of registration, that is under section 4(1). So whenever we're going to have studied all these facts, you all have to memorize this acts and section. And whenever we get the kind of questions in our particular semester's paper, and we have to write very clearly these sections and acts. Sometimes I found that the students are not much clear about these sections and acts. First, the question papers like subjects these have we have, that is management of industrial relations. We can have certain questions that where we can write our own words, like if someone going to ask what are the functions and roles of the trade union, then you can write it accordingly, whatever you have understand under that particular act. But here what is that, certain formation and registration procedures are there, then you have to clearly mention the sections and act under that. So first one is what, mode of registration, section 4(1). Any 7 or more members of trade union may apply for the registration. All the members applying for registration must subscribe their names to the rules of the trade union. So not much difficult to understand this point. Any 7 members or more. So minimum we require the 7 members for the mode of registration under section 4(1). Then application for registrations. Then you have to put an application for registration, that is under section 5. The application for registration should be made to the registrar or the trade union and what it should contain. It should contain the names, occupation, and addresses of the members, then the name of the trade union and address its head office, then the titles, names, ages, addresses, and occupations of office bearer of the trade union. So these are three important let's say details that should be mentioned under the application of registration, that is under section 5, right? First one is names, occupation, and address of the members, then the name of the trade union and the address its head office, then the titles, names, ages, addresses, and occupations of office bearers of the trade union, right? Then content of the copy of rules. So what are different contents are there under copy rule under section 6 is that application should also be accompanied with a copy of rules of the trade unions. It contains the name of the trade union, the first thing, the contain, it should contain the name, whatever the name of the trade union, like into and like this, the whole of the object for which the trade union has been established. And the other important fact is what it should be contain the object, or what exactly the objective of that particular trade union, for which purpose it is going to have established. Then third point is the same, the whole of the purpose for which the general funds of a trade union shall be applicable. So every trade union have their own funds, and they have collected this fund for certain purpose. So that purpose should be mentioned in that particular application very clearly, that whenever this trade union is going to be established, then what kind of funds we're going to have generated it through this particular trade union, and after that generation of that particular fund through various sources, then what it should be applicable for, right? It should be mentioned very clearly. Then fourth one, the payment of subscription by members of the trade union should not be less than 1 rupee per annum for rural workers, 3 rupee per annum other organized sectors, 12 rupees per annum for workers in any other case. So this is the very minimum kind of contribution that is basically uh, decided under this particular act. And as we know that this act is quite old act, so a contribution is also according to that particular act, so that's mentioned in that particular act, right? Then power of the registrar to call for further particulars. Then under section 7, when the application for registration is filed before registrar, he has got the powers to call further particulars regarding the trade union. So under this particular section of the act, the registrar has a power to call for more further details under this particular trade union, right? Once the application is filed before the registrar, once that application is received by that registrar, then to consider that application, to make it through that application, the registrar have the right to to call for further details about that particular trade union, right? So that is the right given to the registrar under this section, under this act, under section 7. Then registration and certificate. So under section 8 and 9, if all the requirements of the act have been complied with, the registrar of trade union shall register the trade union and issue the certificate of registration. So under section 8 and 9 of this act, that is Trade Union Act 1926, under this act, the section 8 and 9 has give a right to the registrar, if the particular requirement is fulfilled to comply a particular trade union, then it should be registered, right? And this registration certificate is then given to the trade union, right? So under this particular section 8 and 9, registration and certificate can be issued to the trade union if every requirement is fulfilled as per the registrar's guidelines, right? Then registered trade union section 2E, a trade union which is registered as per provisions under the Trade Union Act 1926, which has the certificate of registration, is called registered trade union. So once under section 2E, once this particular trade union is registered and they have got the certificate of registration, then this trade union is called a registered trade union, right? Then duties and liabilities of registered trade union. So when after this all particular procedures under certain sections, that is from section 1 to section 8 and 9 and section 2E, the certain duties and liabilities are registered under registered trade unions. So what are they? First one, change of registered office under section 12. If any change in the address of the head office of trade union takes place, notice of change must be given to the registrar in writing within 14 days. So under section 12 of this particular act, if any kind of change is there in the address of registered office of a trade union, then it should be intimated to the registrar, and that too within 14 days of that change, right? Objects on which general fund uh, as be spent, it's AOS, as be spent. Under section 15, the general fund of registered trade union can be spent only the object. So what exactly it means that whatever the general funds are there in a particular trade union, then it should be spent for a particular object that we already have decided earlier in under section 2, right? So that spent uh, rights will be there in under section 15. Then constitution of a fund for a political purpose, section 16. A registered trade union may constitute a separate fund from which payments may be made for the promotion of the civic and political interest of its members, right? So what exactly this section 16 means? If any of the constitution of a fund is there for political purpose, if any of the trade union is want to constitute a separate fund to to promote a kind of some civic and political interest, then to its members, then they can able to maintain a separate fund under section 16. Then proportion of officer bearers be connected with the industry under section 22, right? So here under section 22, the officers bearers means that those have uh, connected with the industry, they have their particular details or can say numbers should be mentioned under section 22. Then power of the registrar to call for further particulars if sorry returns to be submitted under section 28. Every registered trade union is required by section 28 to send annually to the registrar on or before a prescribed date a general audit statement of all receipts and expenditures during the year ending 31st day of December. That is also changed now, but it's an old section, so it's all according to that act only. But the major concept is what under section 28, all the receipts and expenditures of a trade union is normally audited on year to year basis. So that is the concept of returns to be submitted under section 28. Under this section 28, all the trade union should have to audit their receipts and expenditure on year to year basis, right? Then account books and list of members. The account books of registered trade unions and the list of members thereof is open to inspection by any office bearer or member of the trade union at such times as may provided of in the rules. So what happened under section, under this head of account books and list of members, the trade union should have to inspect uh, by any kind of office bearer and the member of the trade union on time to time basis. Their account book should be checked as per the rules provided under this particular section, right? So these are all about that responsibilities and liabilities that registered trade union have, right? And now what is the different types of trade union funds are there? So registered trade unions raise their funds through general funds and separate funds. So we're going to have now discuss over it what exactly being the general fund is there. Under section 15 of the act provides certain restraints against expenditure out of the general funds of the registered trade union. It lays down that the general fund of registered trade union shall not be spent on any other objects than the following, namely. So what different kinds of restraints are there? Restraints in the sense, what are different kinds of restrictions are there over the expenditure of the general fund of registered trade unions? So that is mentioned under which act section? That is section 15. So what are different kinds of uh, objects are there? The first is the payment of salaries, allowances, and expenses to the office bearer of the trade union. It should not be spent over it. It lays down that it clearly mentioned here that it lays down that the general fund of the registered trade union shall not be spent on any other objects than the following, namely. Means that whatever these points are mentioning here, these points are basically eligible to spend a fund of the general funds, right? The payment of salaries, allowances, expenses to office bearer of the trade union, that's first point, that where we should have to spend. The payment of expenses for the administration of the trade unions, including audit of accounts of general funds, that's second point. The allowances and compensation of members for loss arising out of the trade unions, right? Then fourth point, provision of education, social or religious benefits for members for the dependents of the members. So these are the 4 points that which is eligible to spend a particular fund over the particular head of section 15, right? These are what it lays down that the general fund of registered trade union shall not be spent on any other objects than the following. It means that these are the objects where the spend should be they should be eligible, where we have to spend these funds. These are 4 broad points over which this general fund can be spended, right? So this is under section 15. Then separate funds is there, that is mentioned under 16 of the Trade Union Act, has made suitable provisions for the constitution of a separate fund for political purposes. The Act empowers a registered trade union to constitute a separate fund from contributions separately levied for that fund. Out of this fund, payments may be made for the promotion of the political interests of its members in order to promote the political objects. But the general fund should not be utilized for the political purpose. So they have separated these 2 particular funds. So that is general fund and separate funds, right? So this is all about Trade Union Act 1926. We have seen that, we have learned that what are different kinds of sections under this particular act and what is the particular can say characteristics of the every section under this particular act, right? So my suggestion is what we have not much here to make it can say conceptually we have to understand it, because everything is mentioned here what we should have to take care under which section, under section under Act of 1926, Trade Union Act of 1926. Under this act, various sections are there and every section have their own particular characteristics. So we all have to be read it out, all have to be understand it, and we have to rememberize it. So conceptually, we should not have to take care of anything here. Whatever the things are mentioned, then we have to make it memorize that under Trade Union 1926 Act, what are different sections are for. And we have to then, under every section, we have to then memorize their particular characteristic, that for what purpose that section is for. And that purpose and objective we have to remember, right? So what I'm telling you here is this particular subject of industrialization is basically constitute different kinds of acts and sections. And other than this, also there are certain concepts like for what purpose this particular trade unions are, what is the concept of management of industrial relations, how you're going to have led on different objectives under trade unions. So these are the concepts that you can able to write it on your own if you have that kind of understanding over that particular concept. But certain sections and acts are there where you have to have understand it and you have to memorize it, that which act is for what purpose, and under a particular act different section is made up for what purpose. So this is the overall way of approach toward this particular subject for that you all people should have, right? So for today's class it's sufficient. Again we're going to have uh, start the new topic, continue topic in our next class of PMS and MR. Okay. Anything that you're not able to understand on your own side, then see that video again that I'm going to upload soon on your particular WhatsApp group. And if you have still certain doubt over it, then you can send me on mail me or WhatsApp me, whatever your convenience is there. Okay. Okay. Thank you for today's class. Bye. Take care.
Thank you, sir.